So about 4 months ago, I bought a house that got hit by a tornado. We're in Oklahoma City, so we get a lot of tornadoes out here. Never had the opportunity to remodel a house that got hit by a tornado, but I did get to remodel this one. And today what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through a numbers breakdown. You guys have been wanting to see what I spend, how much I spend, what a rehab looks like. I'm not hiding anything. I do this every day. It doesn't affect me if you guys know how much I spend or not. So we're gonna go run through the numbers. I may spend a lot more than some of you other guys. I may spend a lot less, but you know, this is just what my crews run me. I've gone through the route, and this is just for, you know, I have people that already flip houses. I've got people that are wanting to flip houses or rehab houses. Some are gonna wanna keep them as rentals, but the cheap guys have never made sense for me. I used to use them, and one way or another, it ends up biting me in the ass every single time. And so I don't use cheap guys anymore. I use guys that are solid, that do good work, and I'm okay paying them. It's just like my real estate team. I want them to win. Same with my contractors. I want them to win as well. It's a relationship. You know, I'm not in it to be the winner and the only one making money at the end of the day, because if I'm the only one making money, then A, that's selfish, and B, nobody's gonna wanna work with me, you know? And so that's been a mindset shift. Like when I first got into selling real estate or buying my own real estate, that I wanted to use these like one-off crews. And I have these comments all the time. You know, I'll post a rehab breakdown. I used to post a lot of reels on Facebook, and I'd have like this one-off guy that I've known that's like, oh, I can't believe you paid that. I could do that for way cheaper. And it's like, you know, good for you, bud, you know, but no offense. I don't want to use you. There's a reason why I didn't give you the job. I also don't want the rehab to take 8 months. I wanted it done in a timely manner. And so that's usually you're going to run into quality issue, not always, or you're going to run into it's a one-man crew or a two-man crew, and they can't keep timelines. They don't get stuff done on time. They overpromise. And so I just don't like that model. I use guys that I trust, that I know are gonna get the rehab done. And so this rehab was pretty fun. Everything went pretty smooth. You know, I get asked a lot where I find my deals. This was a deal that I was scrolling through MLS one day, which everyone has access to MLS. It's the same stuff that you see on Zillow or Trulia or Redfin. I see those deals as well. So I'm scrolling through and I see this house listed here where I live for $90,000. And I know that house, because it's on an acre, I just know my area. I'm like, that's a $300,000 house all day long. Now, the roof was caving in, and I'll put some photos up. So I knew it was pretty rough, but for $90,000, that's a huge spread on a $300,000 ARV. And so I sent an offer as is, sight unseen, no due diligence. I just felt confident about the deal. That's something that advanced investors are gonna have on you guys new investors. There was a time where I couldn't lock a deal sight unseen, and it made it a lot harder to get the deals done. But when it comes to growth, it's not like gradual like this. It's very like, it's a compound effect where you just like, hopefully you guys can see that, but you just compound up. So like, yeah, your first deal is gonna be the hardest. Your second deal is gonna be hard. Your third deal is gonna be hard. But then once you get like 10, 15, then it's like, okay, I know my numbers. I can take the risk of a couple grand in earnest money, and it gives you more leverage, more options. And so anyways, sent that offer in, got on the phone with the agent, long story short, put it under contract. We closed on it, had my structural engineer out. I had them out while we were under contract, and he said everything was solid. There were a few trusses that needed to be replaced, and then that's it. So had them out beforehand, just had them out last week. We finished the rehab, everything's solid. We're really like 95% done. You guys will see. We've got a bunch of little stuff to do. Landscaping doesn't look great out there, but I'm not gonna tell you guys how much we spent yet. I'm gonna tell you guys that at the end, or I might put it in the thumbnail, I don't know. But anyways, today's my birthday, and so I thought what better to do than to go record some content. It's been really cool. I've been posting for 20 days now. Started on June 1st, it's June 20th. And we just crossed 17,000 watch hours, which is pretty crazy. I think that's like a little over 2 years of continuous watch time of my content in the last 20 days on YouTube. I got monetized, that was pretty cool. And we've got, you know, almost 6,000 subscribers now. So when I started posting, it was kind of, you know, I came back from the Keys. I had this mindset shift, and I was like, you know what, I've had somebody on my team had mentioned it, and I've had other people mention it before, like, you should post long form content. And so I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna post. And it was a perspective of, if I just post over a long enough time horizon, aka, you know, 5 to 7 years, then surely I'll get some sort of traction. And so I expected a couple hundred views for a long time before anything started to pick up. Obviously, that's not been the case. It's really cool seeing. I've been getting a lot of DMs on Instagram. I respond to, I think, pretty much all of them. I don't know how long I'll be able to do that for, but if I can help you guys out, I'll help out anywhere that I can. But it's been cool seeing that. So anyways, I'm glad that it's making or adding a little bit of value. But I want to talk about, I've noticed a lot of the demographic, and really I've got people all over the world now, and all different ages. But it seems like the majority are 18 to 25, right around my age. I'm 24 today. And they are looking for like guidance on like, what should I do? What should I do in my situation? What should I do here? I've mentioned it before, I'm gonna mention it again. It comes down to two things. You need to know you need to know your market well. You need to know how to rehab properties. You need to know how to manage stress, which is huge, because when shit hits the fan, which it will, it's not all rainbows and sunshine all the time, especially like today. I've already had issues. I have issues every day. You know, when you hit a certain scale, it's just kind of is what it is. And you need to have good reserves. You know, for example, right now, we started a rehab 4 weeks ago, and I had 1031, so I moved some money from another property into this one. The way that we had to structure the deal, I couldn't have rehab funds up front. And so my bank has been trying to finalize the rehab funds for me, but I'm not gonna wait on the rehab funds to do the rehab. So I've been floating a $35,000 rehab out of pocket over the last 4 weeks. And if I didn't have, and that's on top of still cutting $20,000 payroll checks for my other projects that we have going on, which thankfully I have rehab funds on. If I didn't have good reserves in place, I'll probably be in a pretty bad spot. And so that's why I really hammer on, like, you need to make sure that you have reserves to do the project. If you don't have 30, 40, 50,000 sitting in a bank account, I personally wouldn't go and buy your first property. Can you? Yes. And I don't want to say that you can't, because there's plenty of people that do and have, but it wouldn't be a recommendation that I have. I think that you need to have those reserves in place, and you need to be able to look at a deal and go, that's a deal. Typically, it's going to pencil pretty quick. Like this house that we're going to go look at, I looked at this and I knew it was a deal. Now, it takes a little bit to get to that point, and you need to learn a lot. And hopefully these videos help out, and there's a ton of other ones on YouTube as well. But those are the two biggest things that I'd hammer on. Something else I want to talk about right before we pull up is opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is something that I think about pretty often. And my interpretation of what opportunity cost is what is the cost, not in dollar amount, but what is the cost of making every decision that you make? And so right now I'm at a fork road of like, okay, I'm about to hit 10 million held in real estate. I can continue, it's mostly single family, a little bit of commercial. I can continue doing what I'm doing, or I can try and shift and move towards a little bit larger deals. Multifamily, 10, 20, 30 units. I already own an 8-unit apartment complex. Industrial, retail. Those are kind of what I'm looking for. And when I'm thinking about that, I'm thinking, what is the opportunity cost of continuing to buy single family real estate over the next 30 years versus going and moving towards those larger assets? Because a lot of single family investors, it's like a big no-no or big gray area. Like, if you're a single family investor, you need to stay in your lane. You need to only invest in single family. Or if you're a multifamily investor, you need to only invest in multifamily. You know, I mean, there's no right or wrong at the end of the day, but I invest in real estate. And I wouldn't say that I know everything about all types of real estate, but I bought and sold land, I bought and sold multifamily, I bought and sold single family, industrial, retail now. And there's are still some asset classes that I don't know that well, and there's still a whole lot that I don't know. But I do want to start making those decisions that will get me towards the larger deals. Because I don't want to be the guy in 30 years that's like, I own 500 houses, which is really cool and that's awesome. But I'd rather own like a couple million square feet or 10 million square feet of industrial space. It's just easier at the end of the day. You can force the value more, less decisions to make. I'm noticing, you know, I'm carrying anywhere from 15 to 20 projects at a time. And I'm noticing that, you see these guys behind us, they're putting up the framing today, it looks like, on that property. Here's our beautiful rehab here. But, damn, I lost my train of thought. Anyways, let's check this property out. All right, so before we roll in, I remember what I was talking about. I was talking about opportunity cost between continuing to buy single family, which I'm gonna continue to do. I'm gonna continue my flips. I just don't know if I wanna do 15 at a time. There's a lot more decisions involved with it versus on the commercial side, less decisions, big hitter decisions, but if you make the right ones, they're big swings. So this is the biggest rehab I've ever done. I'm gonna roll through, we'll get to the numbers here in a little bit. And if you guys want, drop me a comment, a like, hit me on Instagram or hit me with a follow on Instagram. If I can get to 1,000 likes on this video, I'll send, or really either way, I'll send you guys the full numbers breakdown. We keep invoice tracking on everything. This is gonna be a real high level overview today. And, but if you guys wanna see like the nitty gritty breakdown, I'll send that over if you'd like. Anyways, let's check it out. So it's a little windy, so we're gonna get inside. The biggest thing on this house, the biggest expense that we had was the roof, the framing, and then this porch. So when the tornado hit, you see all the houses are gone here, all the houses are gone over here. This is the only one that got salvaged. But when the tornado hit, it ripped off a part of the roof and it's ripped off the entire porch. And so we spent $21,000 for all of this. The framing, the roof, this is all labor and materials. And I think it turned out pretty good. I'm glad that we put a porch back on. So once again, I'm not gonna be super nitty gritty in this video, but I'm gonna point out kind of what our average cost looks like when I remodel houses. And I'm still gonna go through the breakdown, but I'm not gonna point out every single little item because we had hundreds on this one. But pretty much in here, we've got engineered hardwood floors. These are really good floors. Different than luxury vinyl plank, different than laminate. Typically how it goes is you have laminate, which is your cheapest, it's not gonna be waterproof. Then you have luxury vinyl plank, which is nicer, and then you have engineered hardwood, which is the nicest. This can be sanded down and sealed, which we're gonna have to do. We just spent the last like 15 minutes running through here, but you can see our guys didn't tape any of this up. And this is just like the pitfall, you know, the shit shows that I talk about. If we, this is something, as an owner, I take ownership for this because I should have told them up front, we need to tape these floors up. But we got a bunch of projects going on and it was kind of assumed that they were gonna tape these up and they didn't. And so because of that, we have scuff marks all over the place. You can see scuffs here, 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 literally all over the place on a $330,000 house. And so I called the contractor. We're gonna get him out Monday. Hopefully he's willing to eat a portion of this cost because I do feel like a portion of it is on him. He knew that we were keeping these floors and they didn't try to maintain them during the rehab. It is what it is though. So we didn't spend anything on these floors. We did do carpet in the bedrooms and I'll show you guys that. So carpet in the bedrooms, total cost for that was $1,550. That was labor and materials, pretty good price. Carpet doesn't cost that much. I do it on all my flips. I wouldn't do carpet on rentals, but for flips it works well. And look at this, like, you can see all this dirt that somebody's already tracked in. This carpet's been in here for like 3 days, you know? And so, whatever, it's just part of it. That's why, once again, real estate's just a shit show in general. But some of the bigger deals, like we have that 11,000 square foot strip center, way easier project than like 3 of these flips going at a time, and we have 10. So here in the guest bathroom, this was pretty simple. We paid $1,500, all labor and material. That was for, or all labor, material was separate. That was for redoing the shower here. We put a new fixture, we kept the toilet, we redid this flooring. We did keep the whatever, the vanity, and then our granite was separate, but our guys installed all of these fixtures in here. So it's $1,500 to do all of that. We've got, once again, the $21,000 for the roof. Demolition, so when we got in here, it was pretty rough. You know, it was caving in. They had to demo out sheetrock. So we had $3,000 on demo. That was everything on the interior. Our exterior demo was different because we had just a whole bunch of junk that was strewn in their yard. So we had to pay a dirt work guy for that. We'll get into that cost here in a second. Carpentry. So when you're rehabbing a property, you've got all your carpentry. Thankfully, the trim was in pretty good shape, so we didn't have to do that much. But we did have to clean up all of our original woodwork and then install a little bit more trim. This is the primary bathroom here. The carpentry, we paid $2,300, labor only on. Bathroom in here, for all of this tile, we ran these new fixtures, we ran tile. We're gonna put a freestanding tub here. All this tile here on the floor, all this tile in the shower. We paid $2,500 for all the tile in here and our backsplash in the kitchen. So this was a 2001 model home, and what I see a lot of flippers do is they'll come through and they'll rehab the whole house, and this is something I did in the beginning too. They won't update their light fixtures or their outlets, and so you have like these yellow fixtures and then you have white walls, and it just looks kind of tacky. So we paid $1,350 labor only to run all new outlets and light fixtures, and that comes out, typically we'll pay like $20 per fixture installed. Not the cheapest. I mean, you can find guys to do it cheaper, but I know it's getting done, and it's getting done right. Something that we missed was we need to do a fireplace insert. It's always these last, like, we get 95% done with the project. It's like, oh, we need to do that, we need to do that. So this looks real tacky in here. We're gonna replace this, but you can see we've got super tall ceilings. We've got nice light fixtures. This fixture came from Wayfair, actually. Paid like $100 for that, turned out really nice. And that's like typically my cutoff is I'm not gonna pay more than $100 for a light fixture. I don't see the purpose in it. We built this banquette in here because there's no like formal dining, and so somebody can put a table here. We might stage this with a table. Turned out pretty good. We still have to have our granite guys come back. They need to install granite in these window sills, and our granite's still not fixed here. They came back out last week, and they needed this framed in for the sink, and so, but this granite needs to be pulled because they did a piss poor job on installing it. And we did withhold a little bit of money from them to make sure that they do come back out and actually install it. We got this oven that needs to go in. By the way, these double ovens are a real pain in the ass. I didn't realize, but these are like, they're like over $1,000, $1,500 or something to install a double oven. But once again, everything's updated, and that's still old school white. So we're gonna have to get in here and redo that. We spent $1,400 on dumpsters. That was three 40-yard dumpsters, or 30-yard. Materials overall for the rest of our fixtures, for our knobs, our hinges, there was a ton of just miscellaneous windows, sheetrock, tape, texture, all that little stuff adds up. We spent $25,000 altogether on all of the rest of the materials on this project. Grout for the exterior, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's what the materials pretty much came out to, $25,000 on this project. Paint, we had our labor at $3,500 for the interior, and then the paint materials were $3,200. We used a higher end paint. This is a higher end house here in my area, and so I wanted it to turn out nice, and I think it turned out pretty good. Anyways, fixtures, just to go back on that real quick, I'll typically pay, for me, and these are all my numbers, I'll typically pay $1 or $150 per fixture, whether that's a plumbing fixture or a light fixture, and that's labor and materials. And then for flooring, I'm typically gonna pay about $3 a square foot, labor and materials. For, it's probably too windy to be out here. For paint, I'm gonna pay about $350 a foot, labor and materials. And so that's kind of how I run my numbers. Your market might be a little bit different, but for me and my guys, that's typically what it shakes out to do. This has a garage. Walk over here. Pretty simple, but we included the paint in the garage whenever we did this rehab. This turned out good. They had to rip out a lot of sheetrock in here, repainted all this. We had a ton of dirt work, and I'll throw up some drone footage, but or this place was a wreck before. And so we paid $6,000 for removing all of the stumps. We had trees that were leaning over, all the dirt work that we did, and for all the dirt as well that we had to bring in because it was kind of slumped out in the back. In here, this is pretty simple. We went pretty high end on this sink in here, but this is a nice little powder bath. You can see kind of the sink there. I think we paid like $400 for that sink. Probably wouldn't go back and do that, but once again, we're gonna price this thing well, and it's gonna sell quick. That's what my wife wanted to put in here, and it looks good. It's like whatever. Other than that, we had a bunch of other miscellaneous stuff. Those were kind of the big ticket items. This project here, we're at $85,000 on the renovation. And so we're spending, if you take like a couple months, we're spending like $1,000 a day pretty much on this project. So I'm gonna be glad to get this off my hands and get it gone, but it's a good deal. We bought it for 90. We've got a couple grand in holding costs, a couple grand in closing costs. But this is like a hard deal to go wrong with. I could have wholesaled this to an investor as is for like 160. I had investors that wanted to buy it at the time, but I wanted to do the rehab. A, because I was gonna learn from it. We learned a lot. I learned from every project. And B, I wanna make 100 grand, and we should clear a little bit over 100,000 on this project here. This is what I'd consider a unicorn though. They're not all like this, unfortunately. If every rehab was like this, I'd be super happy. I had some dudes in my comments the other day that were like, if I'm not making 75,000 on a flip, then I'm not doing it. And I think that's pretty badass. If I could make 75,000 on every flip, that would be ideal. But in my market, it's easier to turn deals, make a quick 30, 35 on most of my flips. And then every once in a while, I get a big hitter like this that's closer to 100 or more. So anyways, that's pretty much it on this project. You can see the backyard. We've still got to bring out some seed and clean this thing up a little bit more. This thing's gonna sell itself, the house will, so I'm not super concerned about this back here, but it just doesn't look great. The guys next door are framing up, so that's exciting. Their house will be in the process. That's what's nice. Everything got torn down on this side of the neighborhood, so with this, my comps are gonna be all new builds. And so I'm pumped for that, but I think I'm gonna sell this thing before the new builds are up anyways. That's all I've got for this one though. Hopefully that adds a little bit of value. I wanted to go through kind of what the numbers look like on a project, run through what I typically pay. You know, if I'm scraping popcorn, I'm gonna pay $1.50 a foot. If I'm doing the floors, I'm gonna pay $3 a foot. If I'm doing paint, it's $3.50 a foot, labor and material. And that's how I estimate my rehabs. There's a bunch of little stuff, countertops, you know, $30 to $35 a square foot. Make sure that you account for your appliances, make sure you account for your outlets and just the little things. Windows are a big one. Thankfully, we had room in the budget to replace windows, which I knew because they were all blown out from the tornado. But if you've got aluminum windows and you're above a 200,000 ARV, I would go ahead and replace those windows. So make sure that you leave room in the budget for that. The major mechanicals are typically what's gonna put you over, and it's all the little stuff that you don't think about as well. So hope that adds a little bit of value. If you guys can, please drop me a comment, drop me a like, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.